Planning, installing, and caring for your native landscape project. Take a moment to open your binder to Appendix B and Landscaping with Native Plants. You will also need the handout called Plant List for PowerPoint a little later in this portion of the presentation. At the end of this section, we hope you'll get ideas for where to locate your landscaping, plants for your specific site conditions like sun, shade exposure, soil moisture, and plant combinations, as well as some maintenance and protection measures. Your landscape will not only provide a public benefit by helping reduce runoff and improve water quality in Lake Whatcom, but there will be perks in it for you as well. You can create a private space, a beautiful shady retreat, attract birds and butterflies to your yard, and your landscape should require less maintenance, less irrigation, while reducing energy costs and storing carbon. Water leaves your property in 3 ways. Looking at how water leaves your property will provide a frame of reference for making decisions about how to best locate your landscape in a meaningful way. In this graphic, we look at the 3 ways water moves relative to a natural forest and an urban lot. The first, evapotranspiration, is the process of transferring moisture from the earth into the atmosphere. It's like sweating. It can evaporate from the soil or other surfaces like plant leaves. In a forest, 50% of the water will be evaporated versus 20% in an urban lot. The second, soil infiltration, is when surface water sinks slowly into the soil. Surface water is filtered through the soil before reaching groundwater or other surface water lower in the watershed. In a natural forest, 35% of the water sinks into the soil compared to 15% on an urban lot. Finally, the third is surface runoff. It's just what it sounds like. Surface water does not sink into the ground or evaporate into the atmosphere. It runs off quickly with little time for sediments and pollutants to be filtered out. And this is common where there are abundant hard surfaces like roads, sidewalks, and roofs. This is where the urban lot excels, with 65% of runoff leaving urban lots this way. And unfortunately, this is the least desirable of the 3. An important concept that we'll talk a little bit more about throughout this presentation is the relationship between native plants and soil organisms. Soil is teeming with life, not just things we can see like earthworms and beetles, but with billions of bacteria, fungi, and other microscopic organisms. These organisms help break up compacted soil, they digest organic matter, and can improve infiltration as they tunnel through the soils. Mycorrhizae are one of these organisms that we cannot see, but have evolved with native plants to form a very important relationship. Plants create sugars from the sunlight that help feed the mycorrhizae, and the mycorrhizae in turn can absorb nutrients from the soil, making them available to plants. Mycorrhizae can increase water tension in soils, absorb phosphorus, bind toxic metals to soil, digest many pollutants, transport nutrients in water, as well as sequester carbon. One of the first things you're going to want to do before planning your native landscape is to go outside and take a look around. Where would you like to locate your landscaping? Can you locate it in areas to capture runoff? Don't forget to consider your needs too. Where do you recreate? Do you play croquet on your yard? Do you have kids or pets? Do you want to attract wildlife? Do you have a view that you would like to preserve or frame? Think about what canopy layers might work best for your site. To best manage runoff, locate landscape beds at the bottom of slopes, along water resources, between impervious surfaces and lawn that you want to keep, or along the edge of your property. One of the ways to meet HIP requirements would be to expand an existing bed. You can add canopy layers or increase plant density, or just expand them and add more plants and mulch. The vegetation layers shown here are the trees, shrubs, and ground covers. You can also create new beds. If you hate to rake leaves, consider a bed beneath some trees. When the leaves fall, they'll drop into the lower vegetation and decompose. This will feed the soil organisms, which will in turn help to feed your plants. Create new beds in unused areas. If the only time you're using your lawn is while you mow it, that's a great place to eliminate it. Create new beds where grass doesn't grow well. Places like hillsides, or it's too shady, places where it's too wet or too dry. Creating new beds adjacent to lawn or impervious surfaces will help infiltrate and filter stormwater runoff. Creating new beds along the perimeter of your property will help manage stormwater, as well as provide privacy, enhance or frame views, provide wildlife habitat, as well as save energy. To locate landscaping in areas best suited to capture runoff, you will want to track the water flow across your property. Look at high and low points. Locate landscaping to slow the runoff and allow it to infiltrate into the soil. Native fauna loves native flora. Plant with a vertical strategy in mind to attract different species of birds. Plants with bloom times spread throughout the season will promote insects and pollinators as well as provide food for the birds. Once you have decided on the areas that you want to landscape, you may wish to create a planting plan. This will help you document your decisions like plant selection, location of beds, and design for habitat value. Make sure you plan for maintenance by including pathways. This will also help you define beds within the larger space. Group plants according to their water needs so that you aren't over or under watering. Design one layer at a time, starting with the tallest plants. Consider views, both yours and your neighbors. Also think about what you want to see outside of your windows. Mulched paths are simply unplanted space within your landscape. They help divide the space and define the shape and size of your beds. They will allow for movement within the space and access for maintenance. Eliminating lawn is not difficult and can be done in 3 steps. First, you will want to mow the grass very low to the ground. Dig a shallow trench around the edge of your landscape bed. Toss the sod back up onto the lawn to break down and decompose under the mulch. Please note that you do not need to flip the sod over or dig the sod out. This is considered major earthwork and would require a permit different from the one that you will get for your HIP project. Next, lay down cardboard if you choose, but this is not always necessary. Weed cloth is also not recommended. Then spread the mulch 4 to 6 inches throughout your landscape bed. You can now plant at any time, but waiting a few months will ensure that the lawn is dead. Push away the mulch, dig a hole in the soil, plant your plant, and then move the mulch back to the plant within 6 inches from the trunk. Woody mulch reduces evaporation of soil moisture, moderates soil temperatures, absorbs and slowly releases water, reduces weed seed germination, feeds soil organisms and plants, and protects the soil from compaction. Mulch that is larger will last longer. Mulch that has smaller pieces and finer organic material will break down faster and feed the soil more quickly. Consider a layering option to extend the life of mulch and perhaps save money by using a less expensive mulch on the bottom and a more attractive mulch as the top layer. To meet the requirements of the HIP program, you will need to plan for 2 to 3 canopy layers. Canopy layers include trees, shrubs, and ground covers. Within each layer, you will find that there is a lot of diversity in size, shape, and color. Having plants with a variety of heights will slow the rain hitting the soil. The roots and mulch will absorb the rain and allow it to infiltrate slowly into the soil. The example shown here is a combination of shrubs and ground covers. Trees are the tallest plants and provide a lot of structure. Locate these along the perimeter. Shrubs have a lot of variety in size, shape, and blooms. Locate these focal plants along sight lines like the end of paths or where you can see them from windows. Ground covers are the anchor plants. They can provide seasonal interest as there are many evergreen ground covers and perennial blooming plants to choose from. Plant these in groupings and repeat throughout. Designing for winter interest will keep your garden looking good all year long. An attractive winter garden uses evergreen plants to provide color and structure. The rule of 3s in a garden are 1/3 structural, 1/3 evergreen, and 1/3 seasonal interest like perennials and blooming shrubs. The example here shows all 3 layers: trees, shrubs, and ground covers. Here again are examples of all 3 layers. You may want to use a combination of canopy options. You aren't limited to only one. A garden using all 3 layers will have a lot of structure and feels inspired by a shady forest. Using trees and shrubs only will also give a natural, woodsy feel. Trees and ground covers provide a more open forested look. Taller and smaller plants keep the mid-layer more open. Shrubs and ground covers has been the most popular option. There is a great variety of shrubs in both height and blooms. This layer provides structure, but without the very tall trees. Take your inspiration from nature. Plant a meadow of perennial native wildflowers. What are your favorite colors? Blooming plants provide seasonal beauty. benefit native pollinators, support beneficial insects and birds, and provide you with a prime viewing location for blooms and wildlife. Hiking on our local trails can provide inspiration. Plant your own little woodland for a shady, low-maintenance retreat. After eliminating grass all summer, fall is the best time to plant. The soil is still warm, winter rains do the watering for you, roots can grow all winter, and your plant will be better able to tolerate the dry summers ahead. You can still plant in the spring to get similar results. Plants will still need supplemental watering for the first few years. They will need to be watered more for the first couple of years. On page 11 of Landscaping with Native Plants, in Appendix B, you will find instructions on proper planting technique. Here are a couple of notes. A plant's roots are very important. Ask the salesperson to help you inspect them before purchasing. You want to avoid root-bound plants and plants with circling roots. If you purchase bare root plants in the spring, these are plants which are harvested when dormant, and then the soil is washed off of the roots. Make sure to keep the roots covered, cool, and moist. After you have placed your plant in the planting hole, ensure that the roots are not twisted or turned up. You do not need to and should not use potting soil or amended soil to backfill the hole. Enriching the potting hole will keep the plant from expanding its roots and lessen its chances of success. A final note on planting is that even though there will be several inches of mulch to plant through, plants must be planted into the soil, not the mulch. On page 13 of Landscaping with Native Plants, you will find information on weed management and some watering tips. Establishing maintenance zones will help you reduce chores, saving time and water. The deep mulch will inhibit weed seed germination and make it easier to pull weeds when they do appear. Don't let weeds go to seed. Cover tough perennial weeds like dandelions or blackberry with 5 to 6 inches of mulch. This might be a good spot for some cardboard too. Pulling weeds repeatedly will starve the roots, eventually killing the plant. Smart watering can be accomplished by making a few observations in your landscape. Some important tips include watering early in the morning, water slowly, deeply, and less frequently to encourage deep roots. Deep roots can better withstand drought. Group plants according to their watering needs to avoid over and under watering plants. On page 14 of Landscaping with Native Plants are some tips on how to minimize damage from deer. You must accept that you will have to constantly adapt, as the deer are also very good at this. Temporary deer protection is a reimbursable item. Temporary fencing may be used as a protection measure, as well as spray-on repellents, which will have to be continuously applied. Some notes: deer-resistant plants are not always going to be safe. Deer don't read lists, and young fawns will often take a bite out of anything while learning what to eat. Learning about deer behavior and habits can help you avoid conflict. Check out the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife website for more ways to help reduce damage from deer.